Prisons are always built to be escape-proof, but that doesn't stop prisoners from trying to escape. Anyway, these escapes end in various degrees of success, and also various levels of epicness, and sometimes various levels of stupidity. Watch till the end because this video is loaded with some awesome tricks, and mind-blowing ideas, and maybe can help you in the future. This list here is the 10 greatest prison escapes of all time. Number 10. Alfred George Hinds. British career criminal Alfred George Hinds successfully broke out of not one, not two, but 3 high-security prisons while serving a 12-year prison sentence. His first escape was from a Nottingham prison in 1958 where he managed to get through locked doors and over a 20-foot prison wall to his freedom. This earned him the appropriate nickname of Houdini Shines. During his time on the lam, which was about 248 days, he traveled across Europe working as a painter decorated before he was caught. Though not to be deterred, he used his rearrest to his advantage, bringing a lawsuit against the authorities and hence finding a reason to be escorted to the long courts. While he was in the courthouse, he somehow duped his doors to take him to the toilet where he was able to lock them up in a cubicle using a padlock previously prepared for him by some accomplices. This escape, however, only lasted about 5 hours later while at the airport. This third and final prison escape came less than a year later when he escaped from Chelmsford prison. It's unclear how he did it this time, but he fled to Ireland assuming a false identity, and lived there for 2 years before being caught in a routine traffic stop while driving an unregistered car. Number 9. The Texas 7. The Texas 7 were a group of prisoners who escaped from the John B. Connolly unit on the 13th of December in 2000. The escape was an elaborate scheme devised by the group which led to them overpowering and restraining over 16 people, including supervisors, officers, and 3 uninvolved inmates. As soon as they were overpowered, clothing, credit cards, and ID were taken from the hostages and were used to impersonate civilians at the back end of the prison, while the officers stayed behind to make phone calls to the prison tower guards to distract them. The others raided the guard tower and stole numerous weapons before finally hijacking a prison maintenance pickup truck in which all 7 drove away from the prison. Despite this daring and amazing escape, the 6 of the 7 were apprehended just over a month later and placed on death row. The 7th guy took his own life, obviously choosing to die on his own terms. Number 8. The Alcatraz Trio. In June of 1962, 3 prisoners of the notorious Alcatraz island successfully escaped. After that, they seemed to vanish from the face of the earth. In a plot concocted by fellow inmate Alan West Frank Morris John England and his brother Clarence, they spent 2 years digging an escape route from the cell walls and building a raft to sail to freedom. They were also very thorough in detail, as they also placed dummies in their own beds to pull the prison guard, so it wasn't until the following morning that the guards discovered they had gone. Parts of the raft and life preservers were later found in the bay along with some of the prisoners' personal effects, leading investigators to conclude that the men had drowned, although no bodies were ever found. The FBI officially closed the case on the 31st of December in 1979, concluding that there was not sufficient evidence proving the 3 men had survived. On the other hand, there isn't any conclusive evidence that proves the trio had died either. Number 7. The Maze Prison Escape. The HM prison maze was the backdrop of the biggest prison escape in British history. When on the 25th of September 1983, 38 IRA prisoners literally broke their way out of the maximum security prison. Back then it was considered to be one of the most escape-proof prisons in Europe, which were pretty understandable given that 15-foot fences and 18-foot thick concrete walls topped with barbed wire encircled H-block, and solid steel doors barred all exits from the prison complex. The inmates planned the escape over several months. The plan goes extremely deep, even including 2 accomplices who applied and accepted for orderly jobs. It was their job to identify weaknesses in the system, and they were eventually able to smuggle 6 handguns into the prison by exploiting these downfalls. Just after 2:30 p.m., prisoners seized control by simultaneously taking the prison officers hostage and hijacking a food truck that was delivering food to the facility. Officers in the gatehouse were also taken hostage, and after several attempts, the escapees managed to open the main gate. They were faced with a makeshift roadblock of 2 cars next, at which point the inmates abandoned the truck and climbed over a fence to freedom. In the aftermath, 38 prisoners were able to escape, injuring 20 Parisian officers in the process, with one officer dying of a heart attack during the daring escape. Number 6. John Dillinger. John Herbert Dillinger Jr. was a famous American bank robber who operated during the Depression era. He robbed 24 banks and gave this 4 police stations during his day. After robbing 2 banks, he was caught and imprisoned in Lima in the autumn of 1933. Here he was technically broken out of jail rather than escaped, but he did it in a way that only John Dillinger could. He helped a group of prisoners escape just 4 days after he was captured. The same inmates returned for Dillinger disguised as Indiana State Prison guards and released Dillinger from his cell. After another series of the bank robberies, Dillinger was again cornered in 1934 and sent to Crown Point Jail, which was highly touted as being escape-proof. Of course, though, Dillinger does have to prove this false. He crafted a wooden gun from the shelving in a cell, and he then tricked a guard into opening his cell and proceeded to take 17 men hostage using the fake gun. He locked the men in his own cell, then fled the scene. Dillinger evaded police across 4 states before meeting his end on the 22 ND of July 1934. When a tip-off led to a shootout in Chicago, Dillinger was shot 3 times and was pronounced dead shortly after. Number 5. John Gerard. John Gerard is the only person ever known to have escaped from the notorious Tower of London. Quite ironically, he wasn't a career criminal but rather a just priest, and this making the escape even more amazing. He was imprisoned for continuing to preach his Catholic beliefs when the church was under heavy persecution from Elizabeth in England. While in prison, he endured several interrogations after being tortured for information. He never did break, but was eventually sentenced to death for his so-called crimes. Desperate to escape, Gerard was able to send notes written in orange juice to his allies on the outside. These allies rowed a boat into the tower's moat, and Gerard was able to escape by using a rope thrown up to him. Cheating death after almost falling because of his tortured hands, Gerard managed to climb down to the boat, flee England, and live the rest of his life safely in Rome. Number 4. The Empress Matilda. In the autumn of 1142, Empress Matilda was besieged in Oxford Castle by soldiers loyal to her cousin Stephen. At the time, the battle called Anarchy was raging across the country for the crown of England. 7 grandsons of William the Conqueror and the Empress both laid claim to the crown and took it in turns to lay siege to one another's strongholds. The siege at Oxford Castle lasted 3 long months. Matilda's epic escape came one snowy night in December, when, if the legend is to be believed, she wrapped herself in a white cape and fled on makeshift ice skates across the ice to Wallingford Castle. A truce was decided to end this battle, with Matilda agreeing that Stephen could keep the throne so long as her son Henry became his heir. Quite suspiciously, Stephen died not long after this agreement was forged, allowing King Henry II to take the throne. Number 3. Ronnie Biggs. Ronald Arthur Biggs, more commonly known as Ronnie Biggs, is infamous for his role in the Great Train Robbery in 1963 and for evading capture for 36 years, living as a fugitive until he voluntarily turned himself over to authorities in 2001. After being caught and sent to prison for his part in the Great Train Robbery, Biggs only served 19 months of his prison sentence before escaping from Wandsworth Prison on the 8th of July 1965. Doing so by scaling the wall with a rope ladder and dropping it onto a waiting van. He fled to Brussels via boat and then on to Paris, where he took on a new identity and even underwent plastic surgery. His 36 years on the lam were spent mainly in Australia and Brazil. On the 7th of May 2001, he voluntarily returned to the UK and was immediately arrested and imprisoned. He served 8 years in jail before being released on compassionate grounds in 2009. He died then in December of 2013. Now it's time for today's best pick. Today's photo might look like a daring escape, and it is in a way, but instead of ending in a run for freedom, it became one of the most hilarious prison escapes to have ever been attempted. Find out more next with number 2. Stuck in a hole. Never put a peg in a round hole. We've all been taught that as kids. Also, never squeeze into a hole that's too small for you. Unfortunately, that's one childhood lesson this Brazilian inmate forgot. 4 inmates tried to escape through a hole made on their cells wall using a metal pipe from one prison shower. Unfortunately for them, they were as smart as a bag of hammers. They made the hole too small. Now, while the first inmate who was small was able to squeeze himself through, the next one who tried immediately got stuck, trapping himself into other would-be escapees in the process. Because of this slight miscalculation, the prison guards soon discovered the hapless inmate and put a stop to their escape attempt. The fact that the stunt inmate was reportedly screaming for dear life for someone to help him out. Before moving to the next number, we just want small favor from you. Our team is working hard behind the scene, and we love to see your reaction to our videos. Please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Press the bell icon to get a notification of our upcoming videos. Number 1. The Great Escape. The branch out of Squadron Leader Roger Bauchel. The Great Escape from a prisoner of war camps. Dillinger III is barred none the greatest prison escape in history. The Shell was in command of the escape committee in the northern compound where the British airmen were housed. His plan involved the building of 3 long and deep tunnels named Tom, Dick, and Harry underneath the camp fences. They figured if one of the tunnels was discovered by the Germans, it was presumed that they would never suspect 2 more might be underway. The tunnels ascended 30 feet below the surface and were only 2 foot square. The walls were shored up with pieces of wood which were mainly scavenged from the prisoners' beds. More than 600 POWs were involved in the construction, with Batchelor hoping that at least 200 of them would escape. On the 24th of March, the escape attempt began at 10:30 p.m. The first man out emerged and discovered the tunnel had come up short. Rather than reaching into a nearby forest, the tunnel came out just feet short of the tree line and periodically close to a guard tower. Do you know any greater escape stories? Let us know down below in the comments. Also, with that said, make sure to check out the channel's other amazing videos.